Welcome to Wrestling Talk. I haven't said that since 2018, and the last time we had a show, it was pieces of my interviews at New England Fan Fest. Ed couldn't make it then, and his sons came with me on the very last Wrestling Talk shoot. It was remote, and we interviewed the likes of the Macho Man's brother, Lanny Poffo, and Duke the Dumpster Drosy, and my favorite, Handsome Jimmy Valiant. So now I can say I've interviewed both Valiant brothers. But today, why am I doing this now? Because I have with me via Zoom a very frequent and popular guest, or maybe unpopular, depending on her views at the time as a villain, Brittany Brown, then known as Beautiful Brittany Brown. Welcome to Wrestling Talk.
Thank you so much, Len. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's going to be a lot of fun because we've had you on the show. Like Mick Foley, Ed and I had him 4 times on Wrestling Talk, but they were all promos. He was in character. And when I met Mick Foley at a fan signing, I told him that. I said, we never interviewed the real you. So he said, sometime, hopefully we'll do that. But I have you now, Brittany. And this is going to be the real you. No attacks, no chokeholds, no nothing. It's the real you, unvarnished.
Well, that's only because Ed's not here.
We did this so spontaneously, didn't we? Right, Brittany?
Yes, we did.
I didn't have a chance to call Ed. And knowing how Ed's been very busy lately, I don't think he could have made it. But, I'll have to tell him when this thing airs anyway.
I will tell you right now, if he was here, there would be a problem. Okay, so thank God he's not here, so I can just relax and be myself.
Maybe there is a problem because he's not here.
No.
Brittany Brown is a graduate of the Walter Killer Kowalski School of Professional Wrestling, which was in Malden, Massachusetts, as was gorgeous Chris Duffy and so many others that we've had both on the show and on location with Walter's matches. And Brittany, how did you are the least likely person, as you've told me, to be a professional wrestler. How did you get started doing that?
Well, it's funny. I've been told that before so many times, way back to the beginning of my career. And I at first took it as an insult. But then the older I got and the more of a veteran that I became, I actually understand now that it's not an insult. It is actually a compliment. So thank you for that. And how I got interested and started was when I was probably, 5, 6 years old. My father, myself, and my sister used to watch wrestling all the time. And the more my mother screamed and hollered for us to turn it off, the more we watched it. Just to, laugh while she was doing the dishes because she's, no, turn that off, that violence. And so, of course, we'd start, throwing each other around and yelling and hollering and everything. Well, my father and I really liked all the heels, all the bad guys. So my favorite was the Fabulous Moolah. And I just thought, wow, with those dollar sign glasses on made out of diamonds, how cool is she? I'm going to someday find her. I don't know how because there was no internet then. There was only 411. If, you and I know what that is, I'm not sure if everybody else will, but what do you do? Pick up the phone and call 411 and go, hi, I'd like the phone number of the Fabulous Moolah? No, you can't do that because you need to know where, city and state and a real name, which I didn't have any of that. So when I was 19, there was an ad in the Patriot Ledger, which is a local, Boston paper, as you know. And there was an ad for a wrestling school out of Brockton. And that's how I started to try to find out how to find her. Unfortunately, it was a scam. And the guy never showed up. He just wanted to take my money. But once he saw I had my father with me, he didn't show up. I guess he was there, but he saw me with an older man. So he decided, well, I can't steal her money. So that was when I was 19. And then by the time I was 20, I did find out her real name and address, and I wrote to her, and she wrote back to me. And we planned a day to go there. My father and I flew out there, and Donna Christinello picked us up, and I got accepted into the school, and that's how I started.
That's amazing. All these years I've known you, I never knew that story. That's pretty
Really?
cool. Yeah,
Really?
I knew you worked with her, but I didn't know that so you are a graduate of the Fabulous Moolah School of Professional Wrestling and Walter Killer Kowalski School.
Yes. Yep.
How many people can say that? Wow.
Oh, I don't know. I'll tell you though, it was really cool going there. And I'm glad things worked out the way they did, that I ended up going to Walters too. Mm-hmm. And the only reason for that was because I was, living alone in my own apartment, and I was flying myself every weekend after work. Every Friday night, I flew myself to Columbia, South Carolina. And then I would train the entire weekend until Sunday night. And then I flew home and went back to work on Monday every week for probably about 8 months. And then the airfares doubled. And then they tripled. And by the time they tripled, I said, you know what? I can't afford to do this every week because I'm living alone, and I'm only 20 years old. So I just happened to be getting my car fixed at a body shop in Hanover. And I got out of my Mustang that I was having redone. It was a classic. And I see this guy in like a classic Porsche. And he gets out, and he's huge, and he seems to think that I'm really, really tall. So he looks over at me and he says, wow, you could be a professional wrestler. You're a really tall girl. And I'm thinking, who the heck is this guy? How does he know I'm a wrestler? Because at the time, I'm just going to Moolah's.
Right.
Come to find out, he's Tony Santos. He lived in Hanover, which was the 2 towns away from where I lived, where I brought my Mustang. And he is in Misty Blue Sims's Porsche, getting it fixed for her at the same body shop I'm getting my car fixed at. And he said to me, I said to him, who are you? Do I know you? And he introduced himself. I had never heard of him before because, again, I'm new in the business, didn't know. And he mentions Walter. And he says, you should come with me to Walter's. And I said, well, actually, where is he? And then I told him the story, what was going on with the airfares and everything. And we made a plan for like 2 weeks later to go. And I met him, met his wife, and then we drove down together to the other side, right in Boston, actually, at the time. It was right outside of the combat zone. Very creepy area.
Oh, my.
For a girl from Scituate, I'll tell you. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go here.
So that's where the school was originally.
Yeah. It was the YMCU, right, literally steps away from the combat zone.
So people don't really know that. When you read a history of Kowalski, they always mention Malden, but they don't mention that.
Yeah. And what's funny is that was not his first school either.
Okay.
That, I believe his first school was either in Reading or Salem.
No kidding. Now, where was he living at that time? Do you know?
Stoneham.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
I wonder why he didn't have one in Stoneham.
Yeah, I know. It was either Reading or Salem. I'm not sure which, because I've heard Reading, but I know a bunch of people, the much older than me, the class 1 or 2 before me, that said Salem. So, that's where they went. And then after that was the YMCU right outside of the combat zone. And then after that was Malden. And at the YMCU in Boston, there was no ring. And I said, well, how are you going to teach me how to wrestle? How am I going to go off the ropes? How am I going to learn how to land? People, literally all of us, Jeff Lutie, the Irish Leprechaun, Chris Duffy, Brian Walsh, Cookie Crumble, everybody up there. had to bounce off concrete walls and land on gym mats.
Wow.
For years and years until he got the place in Malden and got a ring.
Now, let me ask you this. Wrestling on top of mats with just the floor underneath, did that make your training better or did it make it worse?
Worse.
Worse.
Very sore back.
Well, I mean, I kind of figured that, but I mean, now going from that to the ring, maybe it makes the ring easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was hard to do, but because you landed that way on, thin blue gym mats like you and I had in high school and junior high, which we know how hard those are right on a gym floor. Then when you get to a ring, it's a piece of cake.
That's what I kind of figured. So, it's like, I don't know, what can I compare it to? Some rigorous athletic thing where it kills you to practice it, but then the actual thing, if you practice hard enough, is just a piece of cake.
Yeah, exactly. But then there was a whole new learning curve. Ropes. You had to learn how to get in and out of them, how to bounce off them properly. Yeah. And boy, did I have some marks on my back until we learned. Now, mind you, at this point, I had probably been wrestling for 3 years.
Yeah.
And here I was, never, ever going off ropes or going through ropes or over ropes until a live match, which, by the way, I had my first one 4 months in to training, and I was not ready. In no uncertain terms was I ready. But somebody canceled, and Jamie West needed an opponent, and they called me and begged me. And I said, oh, no, I'm not ready. I can't. And I was dressed up as Sheena the Jungle Queen with face paint and a leopard print full body unitard, and my hair up in a ponytail and armbands and hand things on my hand with leopard prints and everything. And believe it or not, there's photos of that match in a wrestling magazine. So my very first match ever that lasted 4 minutes made it into a wrestling magazine.
That's great.
And I could not believe it. I never in a million years thought I would be in any wrestling magazine. And when, I used to work in Quincy, and I used to go right off on Hancock Street. There was a really big newspaper store and magazine store there, tobacco store, whatever. And that's where everybody would go to read wrestling magazines or buy wrestling magazines. So during my lunch, I used to go down there and just look through them. And I almost passed out when I saw that. I said, that's me. Oh my God.
Were you happy about that, or did you not want your very first match in there?
Well, the article was about Jamie. So it's not like the article was about me. It was about Jamie. And it did mention, Sheena the Jungle Queen, her opponent. And there was 2 photos of me. But it was just kind of cool. I never in a million years ever thought I would be on TV or in a magazine. Well, and that was the first of many.
That's quite a boost for your very first match. So that must have led to some other things, or did it not?
Oh my goodness. I have a 3-ring binder here that is probably a foot deep, and it is filled with wrestling magazines that I'm in. And those are only the ones I knew about. There were plenty people told me about, fans told me about, since Facebook. Actually, some people have sent them to me, and I've seen them on eBay. It's crazy. It's crazy. Never in a million years when I got into this business did I think I would see myself in a magazine or a TV. Never in a million years. Never.
Let's go back to Moolah.
Yes.
Now, as you know, and fans maybe know who watch my show, I'm friends with Medusa. Now, she worked a lot with the Fabulous Moolah and with Sherry Martel.
Yes.
How was Moolah treating you? How did Moolah treat you? Because then I want to do a comparison here.
Really well. I never, ever had a problem with her. She never spoke anything but very nice to me, very respectful. She was a very hard trainer. Don't get me wrong. There was no wussing out, just same as Walter, same thing. So, but as a person, I never saw any of the stuff that we've recently heard over the past few years. Never.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Medusa doesn't say that either. Medusa says what you say. So what I'm getting at is the toughness, the you felt like you were really beat up when you would practice. So it's the same thing. It's the same experience.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the first weekend that I went there, when we just went down to meet her and everything, and my father came with me, I didn't get in the ring. But the next weekend when I started all by myself, and I was living in the cottages and with 3 other girls, one of those girls was Heidi Lee Morgan. When I got up Sunday morning after training all day Saturday, I literally, and Len, I'm not kidding you, dead serious, could not get out of bed at the age of 20 in good shape. I could not get out of bed and I cried. I did not know how in any way I was going to train all day Sunday because I could not get out of bed. I was crying and I had to reach back and hold the bars behind the bed on the headboard to try to pull myself up.
So now by this time you were living on your own. You weren't living with your dad. Did your parents know the pain you were enduring?
No. I lived on my own since I was 16 and a half. I got my own apartment. Me and my yellow lab named Pokey. We got our own place when I was still in high school.
Wow. Because
I didn't like rules. So I moved out and I was working. I was on work study for the second year. I was on work study. So I only had to go to school an hour and 15 minutes in the morning. And then the rest of the day I worked all day. So I had my own car. I had my own apartment. So no, I did not tell. And of course, who's going to, say, oh my God, I paid money to go to this school and I'm paying the money to fly there and I'm so sore. You don't want to admit defeat. So I just battled through it.
I'm sure that's the case with many a professional wrestler, man and woman, and in all professional sports.
Yes.
That's why I'm not an athlete. I never was an athlete. I'm too lazy to do that stuff. I don't think I could have handled a day.
I was never an athlete, but I grew up from the time I could walk. I grew up bowling because my uncle owned a bowling alley. And he was the United States candlepin bowling champion. So I did that, but to me, that's not being an athlete, really. It's not. But I also did gymnastics. I had private and group lessons. I really loved that. And I also was a cheerleader, believe it or not.
Now that's athletic.
Yeah. But as far as playing basketball or field hockey or anything like soccer, I didn't do any of that.
So let's back up again. You were trained by Moolah, and then you went to Walter's school. And I don't know, do they give diplomas or certificates and stuff? Nothing like that.
I think it's like both of the schools had the same pretty much deal. Was you pay once, you're there for life. Meaning whenever you feel like coming back, you come back. Now Walters, for example, I trained there 4 days a week. I trained there on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and then on Saturdays and Sundays. When, of course, on Saturdays was when you didn't have a show. If you had a show that day, you didn't go to training. You just saw everybody at the show. But so at the beginning, you do that. And then, after years of doing that, you get to the point where you're like, I don't really need to go there 3 or 4 days a week anymore. So then you maybe go on Tuesdays and Sundays. weekends or something, or maybe just Tuesdays. And the same with Moolah. If I ever wanted to go back there, even if it was 5 years later or 10 years later, I could go back there and train for the day or the weekend or the week, whatever I wanted to do.
So did you ever have any injuries that prevented you from wrestling, and then you had to go back either to Walters or to Moolah's and get the ring rust out?
I did. I had one injury, and it was in training at Walters at the YMCU in Boston. There was an inexperienced girl that I absolutely did not want to work with. And I told Walter over and over that I was not comfortable working with her. I was very new, and she was even newer. But Cookie had just left for Japan, and she was the person I was training with. And there was no other girls at the time. So this girl, Paula, came. She was there about 2 weeks. And I said, I'm not comfortable with her doing a sunset flip on me. I'm just not. He argued with me. He yelled at me. He made me do it. And she pretty much pile drove my head into the ground full force. And I cracked C2 and C3 in my neck.
When that happened, did Walter express any remorse about it for making you in that situation?
I mean, he felt bad that it happened. I blacked out, and the next thing I know, I wake up and I see him slapping my face, going, "Oh my God, are you all right? Are you all right?" And then I ended up having to drive home, pretty much like holding my neck the whole way home. And the next day I had to go to the doctors. They wanted to do surgery, and I said, I don't want surgery. And I ended up in a neck brace, and I had some Motrin that I had to, big heavy doses of Motrin that I took. And it 3 years, because I did it without surgery.
Good.
So it was 3 years until I wrestled again. And that was the very beginning of my career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I never planned on wrestling ever again after that. But Cookie and I were friendly, and she was doing a TV spot for Mario Savoldi on Channel 25.
Uh-huh.
And she didn't drive. She took the train everywhere. She didn't have a license. So my father and I went to the show with her. We were just going to watch her.
Yeah.
And the girl didn't show up.
Uh-huh.
So my gear bag is still in the trunk.
Oh, are you kidding?
Nope. That was how I got back into the business.
You just right off the street.
Off the street, and it was the worst match of my life. And I got to tell you, if it wasn't Cookie in there, I probably would have got the tar beat out of me. So I'm sure he felt bad, but he never let me know that he felt bad.
Yeah, that's something. Wow. That's a rough initiation into the world of professional wrestling, and something about it kept you in there and made you go back. What do you think that was?
You know, everybody says this. They say, and you'll probably get this because of how involved you are. Once it's in your blood, you just can't get it out, no matter what.
Yeah, well,
right?
I was always, Tony Rumble used to tell me, he goes, let's see if I could do Tony Rumble. You're not in wrestling, Len. You're not. You're on the fringes. Something like that. He would say that to me. And I kind of agree with that. I don't know. I mean, I know everybody, and I interviewed a lot of the people, but I was never on the road. I was never, I did sometimes go to the school and watch and stuff, but
yeah, I mean, you came to the school, you made everybody a part of your talk show, all of us, true. And so like we're part of your thing and you're part of our thing. Yeah, so it's all true. Like kind of meshed together. So I asked you, could you ever stop doing this? How long have you been doing this?
Well, I did it for 31 years, first with Paul Fay and Ed Whittier, and then finally with James E. or James Quinlan III. Ed, Jim, and I hosted it for the three of us for a while.
Yeah, and here we are now.
Yeah, but I haven't Gone. Yeah. Okay. You're comparing me coming back now to when you wrestled off the street, aren't you?
I'm just saying it's hard to get out of your blood.
Yeah. Well, I have the most experience of this talk show than any other talk show I've ever done. So
Yeah.
it's like going to sleep or
Yeah.
waking up or something.
And I think you understand, though, that you just can't get it out of your system.
When you have a history with something and you kind of develop a feeling for it, you grow with it, you grow despite it, you grow without it. And it's, I'm proud of what we did, and I'm glad I met so many people like you and Vicious Vic and just so many people in the IWF reunions. I wanted to ask you this now, since you were talking about Moolah. Are there reunions of her school people?
No, see, there was so many different classes there. I actually saw a photo collage that somebody did of every single one of her students.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to look for it and send. I know I saved it. Somebody posted it on Facebook. You would be shocked at the amount of women. I had no idea she had so many different generations of women.
Wow.
I had no idea. None at all.
She did it for so many years, of course.
Oh my good. I don't think that I realized how long she did it. Now, I really, really don't.
Yeah. Now, when she was still in WWE, and I think I remember an interview with her where she said she never lost the belt. Now, of course, we saw her feud with Wendy Richter and all that stuff. And when she came out as the Spider and all that stuff, she lost and won the WWE or the WWF belt on many of occasions, but never put her own on the line while she was in WWE. Isn't that correct?
Right.
So,
right. Yep.
When were the tournaments for her belt, or did she never put her own belt up there?
Well, I mean, when she was in WWF, when I was like a kid, a teenager and all that, I definitely remember her having title matches. Now, I think I also remember, and you'll probably know this, WrestleMania 1, I think her title was on the line and it was against Velvet McIntyre.
Okay.
I believe.
Her own
and
title.
I know Moolah was in a few WrestleManias. So I'm guessing they were title matches. And of course, Wendy beat her.
For the WWE, WWF, though, not for hers. WWF.
Now, Moolah had the WWF title for 28 years before someone beat her.
Is that correct, or is that her own title, though?
No, that's the WWF.
Okay. Huh. That's wow. Okay. That's very confusing because I thought she had a title that represented her school.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. We'll have to look.
Could be.
I'm not disbelieving you by any means. I'm just.
Well, I mean, I who knows? Like I said, there was so many generations before me and after me. I don't know what she did, but I mean, she didn't have shows. She didn't have her own promotion or anything.
She didn't. Okay.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Let's talk about some of the people that you met in Walter's school. Did you meet Triple H or work with Triple H at all?
Yeah, I was there the day he started.
Okay.
I was there the day John Cronus started, the day Perry Saturn started, and the day China started.
Wow.
I met Big John Studd. I met Ron Reese multiple times. All of these people. John Studd, I only met twice, but all these other people, multiple times were there. And I, of course, was Walter's ladies champion for 13 years, part of which Triple H was the men's champion of the IWF. So him and I were on because we were champions. And at the same time, Perry Saturn was the light heavyweight champion. So the three of us were on every single one of Walter's shows. Whereas other people, they were on some, they weren't on others, because he had so many people, you couldn't have everybody on every show. But the three of us, because we were title holders, we were on every show.
So what was Triple H like personally? Because I have, as you know, I know John Rodeo. John Rodeo managed him for a time. And back in the day, he and Triple H, when we did this long interview with them, they stayed in character. And I thought John Rodeo was a jerk for years, over a decade or longer, until I can't remember how it came about, but we started to talk and I said, oh my God, he was in character all that time. That wasn't him. And, we went out to eat a couple of times and we hung out a few times. And I said, oh, I felt so bad that I thought of him, but he was so dedicated. Now, was Triple H the same way?
Yeah, he was a really nice guy. He was actually very shy. And I will be honest and tell you that every single time we saw each other, all we did was say, hey, how you doing? How you doing, Paul? How you doing, Brittany? That was it. And I saw him backstage at the old Providence Civic Center when he was Triple H, came up, shook my hand. Perry was working there at the same time, came up, gave me a big hug. I knew him a lot better than I knew Paul because Paul was so shy.
That's amazing. I've had that experience with people in college. I remember I had a class. It was a public speaking class, and a girl sat behind me for the whole semester. And I thought she was a snob. And then the last day of class, for some reason, we started talking. And I said to myself, oh my God, I thought she was a snob, but she was just shy. So, shyness can really put a shield around somebody's personality and disguise who they really are, because there's no way, we're not psychic people. There's no way we can know what's behind that silence,
Right. And I was like that a lot at Walter's school. And a lot of the guys thought I was a snob.
I never thought you were a snob, but it's funny, we never really talked, aside from us doing the show too much until after the show was later, later on.
Yeah. And I was very shy. I just sat in the corner. I laced my boots up, put my practice gear on, and that was it. I worked with who I worked with. It was very difficult for me because I was one of two girls that was there. Always. There was never any more than one other girl there. And there's a whole room filled with sweaty, smelly guys.
Right.
And I just was like, oh, get me out of here. I just wanted to come and train. And, and some nights you don't feel good, or you have a stomach ache or a headache, you just don't want to do it, but you have to do it. You have to push yourself and do it. And, Walter wanted me to work with guys, and I didn't want to work with guys. And he had a real problem with that. Because Cookie had no problem working with guys. And I did.
Now that's a puzzle, because back then they didn't really have intergender matches, did they?
Well, we did have a lot of mixed tags, but it was kind of a joke because Walter was like, you don't touch the girls. Right. And I'm thinking, well, then what do you have in the match for? So the minute I get tagged out, the other girl gets tagged out.
Exactly.
And then the guys fight.
Yeah, that's kind of a puzzle. I don't
Yeah, that was pretty weird. And we did a lot of, a male midget and a female mixed tags. But the same thing. As soon as the midget tagged out, the other midget tagged out. And then the girls fought. So it was the same thing.
What about China? Talk about her.
I didn't have a good experience.
Really?
Nope, not at all.
Can you elaborate on that, or would you rather not?
I just, I'll be honest with you and tell you what she did. When I didn't feel at the beginning that she would ever last. because she was not coordinated, believe it or not. Amazing what she ended up being, because she really was good. I have to give it to her. But at the beginning I said, this is just, and she was hurting people, not on purpose. She came out to one of Moolah's LIWA events. It was the convention, and they had the event once a year with the convention. And this particular year, Moolah and May asked me to book all the matches.
That's Mae Young, right?
Yeah, Mae Young. And so I booked all the matches, and it was Joni's first time coming, China, her first time ever coming. She was new. And when I found out she was coming, I said, she's only going in the Battle Royal. That's it. And I put her in the Battle Royal. And before the show started, I handed them each the card, and they looked at it and they said, oh, nope, Joni has to be in a singles match. And I said, no. I said, you've never seen her wrestle. I have. No, she's going to hurt someone. Oh no, Pat Patterson's coming. We want him to see her. She can see him. He can see her in the Battle Royal. No. So they overstepped me just on that one match. And she fought a girl that she ended up breaking her nose and cracking her pelvis.
Good grief.
And I just, they're not the kind of people that you say, I told you so to, but I certainly was thinking it. And I just thought to myself, this girl is just terrible. And then at the time I was Walter's champion still. And what she did is she undercut me by 50%.
Wow.
So I walked away. I gave Walter the belt back and I walked away.
No kidding. Wow.
Yep.
And is that when you went into the independents?
Well, I was always working besides Walter's. Walter's booking came first. If he had a booking, obviously I would take his first.
Yeah.
But he didn't like to let people work for other promotions, but I did.
Right.
I worked a lot, very regularly in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I worked for Dennis Corluzzo, NWA New Jersey. I worked for WWWA by Dino Sana was his name. I worked for him very regularly. And then, of course, I worked for Rocky Raymond's Empire Pro Wrestling and Richard Burns's USWF and Joe Eugenio. I forget the name of his, but I worked for him too. I didn't want to, but Chris Duffy talked me into it. So, yeah. And actually, Chris is how I met you too.
Yes.
And got on your show.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah. So I worked for, and then of course, Little Louie used to run shows in Maine and I worked for him. So I did a lot of other stuff that a lot of Walter's students didn't do. But he had a problem at first. He didn't want me working for anybody else. And I said to him, that's ridiculous. I want to do this every weekend. If you don't have a show every weekend, then, you can come here and train. No, I want to work shows. So, I thought I was going to walk away a lot sooner than I did, but I stuck it out. And I was his champion, I believe, for 13 years.
That's a long time.
Yep.
And he didn't express any sorrow for your loss? Huh.
Nope.
That's amazing. Well, he kept you for 13 years in that spot, so I would imagine he held some value on you.
Yeah, yeah, and I did have a lot of title matches, and I had a lot of fun, and I worked for LPWA in Vegas, and I worked for WCW a few times. It was really fun. I had a lot of fun, but as far as injuries, going back to that was the only real bad one that I ever had. I only had 2 injuries, and that was one that kept me out of wrestling for 3 years. The other injury, I blew my elbow out at a match with Jamie West in Connecticut. And I passed out right in the middle of the match.
Good
In
God.
the ring, I blacked out and luckily came to rather quickly and finished the match, but it was pretty bad. My elbow was, it's actually still messed up today. If you look at both of my elbows, you can see which one was injured. Let's
Can
put
you
it that way.
feel it today?
No,
Oh, that's good.
no, but you can see it. It's a little disfigured. Yeah.
So talk about some of the opponents that you were up against in WCW and some of those other places that we might know.
So WCW, I went on a tour with Black Venus, which was Jean
yeah.
Kirkland.
Yes.
She was on that tour with me. Do you know her?
I do. I unfortunately, I know she passed away.
Yeah.
I was doing an interview with both Black Venus and Misty Blue, and we had one mic. Well, I had a mic and Paul had a mic, and we were experimenting. Let's see. Yeah, we were experimenting with two cameras at that point, and this was on location in Nashua, New Hampshire, Hampton, New Hampshire. Excuse me. So Black Venus was the heel and Misty was the face, and I was interviewing Misty. Paul was interviewing Venus.
Let me tell you something.
And somehow, when we're doing the interview, they started going at it.
Sorry.
And when they hit me, and I hit myself in the nose with the microphone.
Oh no.
So, but I used it because I knew how it would look really cool. So I didn't break character or anything like that. And we had this thing, Venus did this to me, and Paul was on Venus's side and said, "Oh, your own interviewee hurt you." It was her. It was not. It was funny. It's a fun memory.
She was I got along very, very well with her. I first met her at Moolah's. She was there when I started there. She lived there.
Yeah.
So I first met her there, and then LPWA was the second time we were together.
Yeah.
And then the third time was WCW. And the rest of the girls on that trip were Misty Blue, Linda Dallas, Kat LaRue.
Yeah.
And I believe, Sherry, Nasty Sherry, Little Louie's former spouse.
I don't think I know who that is.
Yeah, she did I think she did a crystal blue gimmick.
Okay.
She did that first as Misty's younger sister.
Maybe I did meet her. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she did she's really, really nice girl. Oh my goodness. Such a good person. And her husband Hal are just great people. And she has a daughter who's a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
So that little girl, her father was a midget wrestler and her mother was a female wrestler. And she is Pinky Shortcake. I don't know if you've heard of her.
I did not hear that name. That's
You got to look it up afterwards tonight on Facebook. You got to look her up. She is great. And she is part of the midget mafia with her boyfriend. His name is Psycho, Syko, Psycho. And so they just had a daughter. And so there's another generation of a mother and father wrestler.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's really, really good. And of course, Little Louie, he was great. And Sherry was great too. Great to work with. But we were all supposed to travel together for a whole week, going from town to town in WCW. And when I got to the meeting spot, everybody got there in their own vehicles and stuff. And we were supposed to get into a van and all drive together. But I won't mention any names, but some people were doing drugs in the back of that van.
Oh boy.
And I said to myself, you know what? I'm probably going to get my butt kicked in the ring, but I'm not driving with these people because I have a day job. I have a career.
Yeah. And
I have a license with the state of Massachusetts to do my day job. And I would lose that license if I was arrested.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving up my career for something I don't do.
Right.
But I would be arrested too, just like them.
That's right.
Because I put myself in that situation, so I wouldn't do it. And I thought to myself, oh boy, this is not going to be fun. And only one person had a problem with it and was a little rough with me at one of the, actually at the show at the Philadelphia Spectrum.
Good.
Somebody was a little rough with me, but nobody else cared. But I will say this. I think it would have been different had Jean, Black Venus, not chosen to drive with me. She did not get in that van. And she said, Brittany, can I drive with you? And I said, absolutely.
Awesome. That's good.
And we drove together. We were also supposed to stay, all of us, in the same room. And I said, well, where are people going to sleep? And they said, oh, you just take the mattress and then the box spring. And if you sleep on the mattress and if you sleep on the box spring. I said, yeah, not this girl. So Jean and I got our own room and we drove in my car from, Kentucky, Philadelphia, everywhere. And one of the girls said to me, you're not getting trans or hotel. And I said, I do not care. Well, I don't know how it got back to Ted Turner, but I got a very handsome check on top of the very handsome check I was getting to wrestle. But I also got all my trans and hotel paid.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
So you think he found out what was going on and the reason that you separated from them?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
See, that could have easily gone the other way because, there's situations where management would side with the majority and then you would have been frozen out. I thought that's where you were going with the story. Wow.
Yeah, I think it probably would have happened that way if Jean hadn't gone with me.
That's amazing. So she had a really good reputation, Jean.
Well, a lot of people were very afraid of her. A lot of people believed her character.
Yeah, I believed it, but somehow I knew. It's funny because I don't remember a conversation with her afterwards, but I just had a very good feeling about her.
Very, very, couldn't be more opposite of her character. Yeah. Very much like myself, that a lot of people thought that I was the same as my character. And I found that really odd that people in the business didn't get that's not me.
Yeah. The heels are always the greatest people, I think.
Yeah. And Jean was what a heel, but what a sweetheart. We talked on the phone, I would say an average of 3 nights a week.
No kidding. I got to show you that clip of us.
Oh, I'd love to see it. I'd love to.
It was like 1988. Welcome back to Wrestling Talk. My guest is Misty Blue Sims, one of the most famous women wrestlers of all time.
Hi,
Welcome.
how are you?
My guest is
And your guest is
Venus, the bodyguard for Linda Dallas.
Before we start this, okay, wasn't I supposed to just have this time with Misty?
No, wait a minute. I booked her. I don't know who you booked.
Yeah, this is great.
So why don't you shut your
always
face and let
do
him talk,
this.
okay?
Well,
Just shut your face. Let him talk. Why don't you shut your mouth?
well, wait a minute
Why
now.
don't you
Hold it.
shut your mouth?
Hold it now.
We're trying to conduct this
Sit
interview
me
now.
back.
This is why.
You sit me back.
That
We
we
can do
should-
it now. You shut up. I don't
Come on,
like
we're
what
trying
you
to
got
conduct
on
this
anyway.
interview, Venus. Now, come on.
I mean, we're trying to get, we can talk,
sit back and we'll try
both
to
of
do
you
this
can have
right
your
now.
time, Really.
I think we can do
Please.
this.
When you talk to me, you understand?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Okay.
now let's try to conduct this.
Anyway, I don't
properly.
like what you got on. Look at this. Checks and stripes. You look ridiculous.
Well, what about
She's
him?
got matching sneakers.
Oh, shut your face.
Oh, never mind.
Before I give you a
This
back
is Wrestling Talk, not fashion review, okay?
Understand?
Let's talk about your careers in professional wrestling, okay? Now, both of you have had long distinguished careers, and you've had many feuds with different people aside from your feud with
I'm gonna have
each
one with
other.
you in a minute.
Okay, what do you want to talk about? I'll give the floor to you.
How good I am, and what I'm gonna do to Misty Who? Is that your name, Misty Who?
Hold your mic.
Misty Blue, Misty Who, whatever. When I get you, I'm gonna break you in half and take the belt that holds up your underwear from you.
Oh.
Because that's all it does.
Please, this is television. I mean, you can't say stuff like that.
Don't tell me what I can say, you understand?
Paul, help me.
Do you really think Linda Dallas can beat her, or?
Do I think Linda Dallas can beat her?
Yeah.
Of course.
I understand.
Of course. That's because the referees, they cheated, that's why.
Oh, they cheated.
That's right.
They cheated.
Because
they
they're
cheated.
friends of yours, that's why.
My friends?
That's right.
Yeah, name one.
We had you pinned in there, and you know it. Well, we'll see about that.
Tell us what happened. How come she didn't get disqualified then, or whatever?
Because they're friends of hers, that's why. That's why. Because they're cheaters just like she is.
Now, both of you wrestle in Northeast Championship Wrestling.
That's right.
And you've been in there how long, Misty?
2 years now.
Okay, and who are some of the opponents that you faced?
I've faced Linda Dallas, Cat LaRue, and they have Comrade Orga, and now they have Bodyguard Venus, which you'll see tonight that the referees will not cheat.
You'll see me pin this Misty Who right in the center of the ring. 1, 2, 3.
All right, now
There's nothing she can do with me, you
People
understand?
are always crying over something or another.
Well, we can
Well-
get it on now if you want.
well, please, we have a lot of delicate
You understand?
equipment, Bodyguard
Really,
Venus.
no.
Right
Please.
now.
Right now, and then it won't be
I don't
on the
think-
Right
record
now.
that I cheated.
Right now. And then I can end it tonight.
I understand, Bodyguard Venus, that you weigh 185.
I weigh what?
185.
That's what Misty told.
185. Let me tell you something. Your nose weighs
Come on, Venus, sit down.
185.
Venus.
Oh,
You better get the weight right.
sorry
Why
about
don't
that.
you
Now,
sit me down?
please,
No, we don't
Paul.
Ooh, just sit me down.
We'll be right back. Come on, right after this.
Yeah. And I went to her wake and I was asked to speak at her funeral.
Oh, man.
And
What
yeah, I
happened?
did
What happened to her?
heart attack.
Oh man.
Yeah, only I think 47.
See, that's how my own father went. He was 55.
Awful.
Yeah.
And I was quite a bit younger than her.
Mhm.
And so I was in my 30s, I think, late 30s, mid 30s. And it was just awful. And it was an open casket. And
Where did
I'll
she
never
fr-
forget it.
Where did she live?
Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh wow, right near WWF.
Yep.
WWE.
Yeah, I picked her up at that house many a time.
So geographically, you were probably in every New England state and probably some of the Atlantic states. How far did you go?
So I've wrestled in California, Florida, Wisconsin. I wrestled multiple times in Oregon. I wrestled in Washington, Delaware, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont. Obviously Mass mostly. Just Texas. I wrestled in England. I was asked to go to Japan, but I couldn't,
Wow.
and I was asked to go to South Africa, neither of which I could do because of work.
Yeah.
It was just too much time off from work that I would need. And
Mhm.
although I probably could have gotten it, I just never wanted that to interfere.
Mm.
So, but a lot of places I've wrestled.
That's great. Now let's talk about your favorite and mine, the Pink Assassin.
Oh, love him. Love him. I get a joke from him about a text joke probably 4 days out of 7 a week.
He's a great guy. When Medusa was up here in November for an autograph signing, he came with his little girl. And we didn't recognize each other. Well, I recognized him when they were talking. He was talking to Medusa. I was at Medusa's table, and she started talking about me. She knew who he was because I had told Medusa about him. So she's talking to him, and he's not. And I'm looking at her. I'm like staring at him, seeing who's if he's gonna recognize me. And then finally we did, and we took a picture together, which I'm showing right here.
Cool.
And it was just what a time trip. We used to have such a fun time. He was on the show a lot.
Yeah. Well, he comes to the reunion now.
Yes.
So I'm hoping to see you there in September because he will be there.
I will not miss it this time. I missed it last time because of COVID, but
Yep.
I know how to handle COVID now. If I have to bring a mask, I'll bring a mask, but I'll be there.
Yep, definitely. And you know who else came? Gary Apollo.
Okay, you mean Phil?
No, Gary.
I don't know Gary Apollo.
So there were two Apollo brothers,
I didn't know that.
a nice one and a not so nice one. So the nice one is coming now, and he couldn't be nicer. Couldn't be nicer. He is, I think he's like a colonel in the Rhode Island State Police.
Were they real brothers?
No, thank
No,
God.
okay. That might explain a lot, huh?
Yeah. I'm definitely not a fan of Phil Apollo's.
I did some editing for Phil Apollo and for wonderful Wendell Weatherby.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember Wendell.
They came
I
to
worked
my...
for Wendell.
You did?
I did. I worked against Little Louie's ex-wife, Sherry.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think I worked for him twice. He was a nice guy.
I did editing for him and Wendell, and I did editing for Tony Rumble. And I guess I'm more involved than I remember.
See that?
That's very interesting. So
Yeah.
any outstanding memories that you have of life on the road, or any incredible stories that fans would want to hear?
My goodness, I don't know. I mean, I think just the two most awesome things that just so keep getting brought up is where I train, both places. Like, you couldn't have asked for two greater stars, greater people. And I mean, they were just so disciplined, both of them. The way that they trained, Walter was very, very careful on not changing the way that he trained females versus males.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I do not care that you're a female. I don't care what you have to go through that guys don't and you do. I don't care. So I don't want to hear it. You're not being treated any different. And we all thought, oh, sure, he will. Oh, no, he didn't. Wow. And I will tell you, we were myself and Dawn, I think you probably remember Rosebud.
Yes.
Yeah. And she also wrestled as Shelly Francis and Sheba the Desert Rose for LPWA.
Okay.
Great worker, great friend. We wrestled a lot together for Walter. And oh my goodness, we didn't look mean enough for an interview that we were doing with the Patriot Ledger. Their cameraman was taking a photo of us locking up in the ring, and we didn't look mean enough. So he yelled at us and swore at us to look meaner. And apparently it still wasn't enough. So he came up from behind and grabbed each of our, the back of our arms and twisted the skin.
Good grief.
So much that they got the best photo they could have ever asked for.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
You want a grimacing face. Now, you wouldn't think anybody would do that to a female, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think today they might sue.
Oh, yeah. But that is just a really good example of Walter absolutely refusing to treat us any different than the guys.
Yeah.
We got no breaks. So, like, I mean, the fact that of all the great people that I worked with, too, I mean, it was such a pleasure to work with Leilani Kai and Judy Martin. I worked with both of them separately. Leilani more than Judy. I worked with her a few times for a few different promotions. And oh my God, what to think that I watched them when I was in high school and I thought they were so cool. And then to think I became friends with them, and I'm still friends with them today.
That's amazing.
You know, and Heidi Lee Morgan, and then being in a main event of an independent league when Wendy Richter was champion of WWF and Cyndi Lauper was her manager.
Wow.
And I got to be in a main event. It was awesome.
So were you in a WWF ring?
No, I was working for Jules Strongbow.
Oh, and we had him on the show. Yeah.
Yep. That's who I was working for. And the main event was myself and Wendy when she was pretty much on top.
Wow.
So yeah, that was pretty cool because again, I'm in high school and I'm seeing these people wrestle and they're so cool, and then here I am a few years later.
So what made your career come to an end?
Honestly, and a lot of people don't know this, but honestly, as you know, my father used to go to every show with me, no matter where it was. Never missed a show. And he was in the hospital once and had to miss his first and only show. And it was in Bellingham for Walter. And I was wrestling Jamie West that night. And my father and I had a secret knock. And all of a sudden, it was about maybe a half hour before my match. And I heard the knock on the door. And I said, well, I know nobody knows that knock, but I know my father's in the hospital. So I go to the dressing room door and there he is. He checked himself out.
Good grief.
To come to my match. And it's not like it was against anybody that he hadn't seen 100 times, but he just couldn't miss a match. So for 28 years, my father never missed a match, no matter where it was, whether we flew, drove, whatever. So when my father passed away, I had 7 matches after he passed away. And 3 of them were in Tennessee. The first 3 were in Tennessee on one weekend. And I just wasn't myself. And I said, I don't know. I don't think I can do this. And I really, really wasn't myself at all, mentally or physically. It just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
So then a year later, I worked for that same promoter and I did 3 shows in one weekend in Tennessee. And then when I got back about 2 weeks later, I worked for Chris Blackheart's Showcase Pro Wrestling in North Attleboro, Mass. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. I think when it was local, that's really what made me go, I can't do this without him being here.
Now, he wasn't with you on the road, though, was he?
Yep.
He was. So when you were staying in those, you had those hotel stories, where was he?
He was there.
Really?
He was part of the deal.
That's amazing.
Yeah. In fact, when I wrestled for NEWF in Vermont for Gary Hathaway and Cliff Bartz, you remember that?
Yeah.
How could you forget? So I was their champion. And I just thought this was the nicest thing. So they knew, or Cliff knew, because Cliff was the booker of the women. And that's who I dealt with. They knew that my father always came. Cliff was so nice and just a really nice, polite guy to my father, and always shook his hand, always said hello to him, always made him feel comfortable, and always included him in the free prime rib appetizers and drinks after every show, which I thought was so nice. But he also gave me a hotel suite. So it had 2 bedrooms.
Wow.
And I thought, you don't have to do that. That's totally not necessary, but he did it. And everybody knew it was part of the deal. So any girl that I wrestled, if they shared a room with me, they knew my father was going to be there.
Wow. That's amazing.
Either in the room or the room next door, one or the other. So
it was his passing that led to your retirement.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. You never brought him to my show, though.
No, that was past his bedtime.
Well, I don't know. We never did it past 7 o'clock, did we?
I think when Chris and I first came, I think it was like 7:30.
Yeah.
And then we did it for like an hour or so.
Yeah.
And then I was like an hour and 20 minutes away from you. So
you came to the Lynn studio with us, and you came to the Medford studio when we did it over there.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you came to Revere or not.
No. Every place you mentioned, actually, I lived in Situate at the time,
Yeah.
Situate, Mass. And that was like probably an hour and 15-minute drive each way. So when you add that on to the end of the show, that puts you way after Daddy's bedtime.
That's, yeah. I get it now that I'm getting up there. I go to bed at 9 o'clock. I can't stay up. This is actually almost late for me right now, and it's 7 o'clock.
And I'll tell you, Len, I have the opposite problem.
Yeah.
I have to be up for work at 7.
Yeah.
And last night I looked over at the clock and it said 2:08 a.m. And I was just like, oh, please fall asleep. 7 o'clock is going to come so early.
Well, I didn't say I slept well. I go to bed early, but it doesn't mean I sleep through the night. That's a problem. So with me, I think it's not enough exercise and getting the heart rate up. And there's certain days when I do, and then I sleep, like a log, but
Really?
I'm not dedicated enough for that.
Well, you got to hold yourself accountable. That's what I'm learning.
Well, when I get my garden going and I'm doing yard work, I'll be tired enough.
See that? See that? Well, I just started a program that's called Walk This Way. And they give you a scale, they give you a heart monitor, and they give you an actigraph. And you have to commit, believe it or not, and you get paid for this. You have to commit to 1 year of walking a minimum of a half an hour a day every day.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, I can't do that because I don't do that now, right? But then I went, wait a minute, I have a dog.
Yeah.
I walk him every day. I can do this.
I used to have a dog, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll get out.
So I have an app on my phone, and I have to hold myself accountable to that app. And I just started it 2 weeks ago. And I thought to myself, you know what? Now I can't say, oh, I'm too tired. Archie, let's just walk down to the few doors down. I can't, because I have to have a half an hour a day. And I get paid for it, and somebody's holding me accountable.
Wow.
So I find out that works for me. So I don't know, everybody's different, but me, if I have to be accountable for something and I say I'm going to do it, then there's no way I'm not going to do it.
All right. Well, that's a one more name. Talk a little bit more before we go about Perry Saturn.
Perry Saturn, one of the nicest guys. Nothing but respect, and so polite to myself and my father. My sister even met him, and she's kind of a hoity-toity. I don't know if you remember meeting her.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, lucky you. He was nice to her. He was just a great guy. And I know, he's had horrible troubles, and I feel so bad about that, because that was not the person that I knew. And I truly, truly 100% believe that all happened because of when he was shot in the neck.
I read about that.
Yeah, because he was, I can tell you, I was there the day he started at Walters. I was there his entire career at Walters. Saw him on every show, saw him at training. He was nothing at all the type of person that you would have expected to ever have issues like that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was from the painkillers that he became addicted to because of the severe pain that he was in from the gunshot.
Yep. And what a brave man to do what he did. Yeah. That does not surprise me. That didn't surprise me at all.
He was a very nice guy to me all the time. I used to see him. He used to live in Chelsea, and I'm, of course, in Revere. And when I would be walking my dog, a certain day a week. I would walk every, he'd beep at me and we'd wave, and
Oh,
very, very nice guy. Very, very, I am, never changed my opinion. I interviewed him when he first resurfaced when at FanFest. And he was, like you said, he was in really bad shape, and everybody thought that he wouldn't come back from that. But then the year later, I interviewed him again, and he was almost like his old self. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing. I'm glad that those things happen, because I felt terrible. And he said to me, he goes, "Oh my God," he says, "if I realized that I looked that bad, I wouldn't have done it." He says, "Everybody's saying how much better I look now." He goes, I got to go back and look at that tape," he says.
Oh, he's really, really, really a nice guy.
Yeah,
and I mean, I know, not everybody feels that way. Not everybody feels that way about me, that I'm a nice person, but that's only because they don't know me. And that's only because they don't know Perry.
Everybody has their detractors, unfortunately.
Yep.
It's anyway. Well, Brittany, thank you very much for coming on Wrestling Talk as yourself for the very first time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
After your 4 or 5 other appearances beating up Ed.
Ed, I know. Oh my goodness. We have to do this again where he's there so that I can tell him off once and for all.
No handshake?
At the reunion.
I mean, even I shook hands with Chris Duffy. I mean, body slammed me, and that was an amazing time.
He has got to be looking down on us now going, wow, you guys are still in 2022. You're still talking, huh?
And we're going to mention one more name, Lauren Doucette, your friend and mine. And we both wish he was here.
He's egomaniac. He's not
very
gonna
much so.
He's gonna
just gone too long, too young.
Because he's afraid.
Yep. I'll never forget that day. You were the only one that can remember that with me, because it happened with you and I by ourselves.
Oh, that was horrible.
At the entrance, the little entrance to the place we were having the reunion, not your average Joe's, the restaurant, and you were the only person there. And I talked to her father, as you know, and pretty much in shock, as you were. And you were kind enough to go into the reunion with me at the very beginning and announce it to everybody. Because I don't think I could have done it. I don't know how you did it, because you were a lot closer to her. Not that I wasn't, but you knew her a lot longer than I did. And were very close to her. And she really, really thought the world of you.
Oh God, that was 2019. And I'm just glad, I'm grateful that when I got the Hall of Fame thing, she was there. She was so happy. She was happier than I was.
She cried.
It was amazing, and I said, geez, this is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But, I hope, and I struggle with the belief in the afterlife. Sometimes I believe,
me too.
Sometimes I don't believe. And I hope there is, because I hope she's watching now and
me too.
And sees us and know that we remember her and miss her and all that.
Very much so. Very much so.
I just saw a thing on my Facebook memories thing where there was some post, and I commented. Well, it was my post, and then she commented, and then you commented, and that's just, it's hard to believe when somebody's gone when you see their posts left behind.
I know, and I'm sure you've have it happen that once a year it comes up, you and Lauren have been friends for X amount of years, and then it plays that little video, and that always brings tears. And then on her birthday, that brings tears,
Yeah, it's terrible. But anyway, they say, don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it happened. At least we knew her,
Yes. And she was a sweetheart.
She was a forthright person. She was a talented writer.
Yep.
She spoke her mind.
She did.
Never in a mean way.
Nope.
And she was a great manager and wrestler.
She was. She managed me many times. And oh, I could tell you some funny stories, but we'll save that for another time.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Brittany Brown. And for the rest of you, stay in the ring.
There you go. Come on.
Do you think that's...
And you know what you'll win? If you get it right, you'll win an autographed Brittany Brown 8x10.
What do you think of that, caller? Do you want to...
Sounds good to me.
1 year. Well, I think we might have to give it to him because it was actually 11 months.
Oh, very good.
Right.
Very
Okay,
good
well,
caller.
take
Where's
his
the
name?
caller from?
Take his...
Lynn,
Come on, Chris. You already gave it away.
Okay, I'll give the
Okay.
picture. I'll give the picture.
All right.
Name and address, and we're all set.
All
They
right.
get the
It's always
picture.
I think Steve took that out there.
I hope so.
Thank you for the call.